What if I told you that the happiness you've been chasing your entire life, the happiness you thought lived in achievements, relationships, or approval, was never actually outside you in the first place? What if everything you've been running after, success, recognition, comfort, was only a temporary spark, and the real, steady flame of joy was buried deep within you, waiting to be uncovered? The Bhagavad Gita boldly says exactly that. It teaches that true joy isn't earned, it's awakened. It isn't found by securing the perfect life, but by transforming the way you experience the life you already have. And in a world overflowing with noise, pressure, comparison, and emotional exhaustion, the Gita whispers a timeless truth we desperately need today. Your happiness becomes unshakable the moment you stop depending on the external world to create it for you. Imagine that for a moment. Joy that doesn't collapse when plans fail, peace that isn't shaken by someone's opinion, confidence that doesn't disappear in the face of challenges. Imagine discovering a state of happiness so deeply rooted that life's ups and downs simply pass over it like waves over the ocean floor. That is the promise of the Gita, a path to lasting happiness, grounded not in the world outside, but in the stillness, clarity, and strength that already exist inside you. If you're ready to unlock that deeper joy, this message is for you. In 2025, life feels like it's moving faster than our hearts can keep up with. Every day we wake up to noise, notifications, responsibilities, expectations, and somewhere in the rush we lose the most important connection of all, the connection with ourselves. I'm Roy, and this is Divine Gita Secrets, a space where we slow down, breathe, and rediscover what truly matters. Because let's be honest, even with all the progress and all the technology, most of us feel more stressed, more confused, and more emotionally tired than ever before. We keep chasing happiness like it's running away from us, but the more we chase, the further it seems. That's where the timeless wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita steps in, not as a religious text, not as a philosophy lesson, but as a living guide for real people facing real struggles. In a world full of temporary distractions, the Gita offers something rare, a path to joy that doesn't fade, a way to be calm even when life gets chaotic, a way to find clarity even when the mind feels lost. And today, I want to take you on that journey. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or disconnected, you're not alone. Stay with me, because together, right here on Divine Gita Secrets, we're going to uncover a kind of happiness that doesn't depend on the outside world, but rises from the strength already inside you. We live in a world where almost everyone is secretly struggling, even if they don't admit it. People smile in photos, laugh in public, act confident on social media, but deep inside there's confusion, pressure, and a quiet sense of emptiness that refuses to go away. And the strange thing is, we don't even know why we feel this way. We keep telling ourselves, maybe I'll feel better when this happens. Maybe I'll be happy when I get that. Maybe life will finally make sense when I reach that next milestone. But no matter how much we achieve, no matter how much we improve, something still feels incomplete. This is the core problem the Bhagavad Gita addresses. We mistake pleasure for happiness, stimulation for fulfillment, and external success for inner peace. Modern life has trained us to believe that happiness exists somewhere out there, in a new relationship, a new job, a better body, more money, more recognition. We attach our emotional stability to things we cannot fully control. And when those things change, disappoint us, or fail to meet our expectations, our happiness collapses instantly. The Gita calls this psychological trap attachment, and it explains that attachment is the root of emotional suffering. Think about it. How many times have you believed that one thing would finally make you happy? Maybe it was a promotion, thinking a higher salary would remove stress. Maybe a relationship, believing someone else could fix your inner loneliness. Maybe a lifestyle upgrade, new house, new phone, new city.
But after the excitement fades, the same old restlessness returns, the same anxiety, the same overthinking, the same emptiness. It happens because the pleasure we experience from external gains is temporary by nature. The Gita teaches that this kind of pleasure rises quickly but drops just as fast. It's like eating sugar when you're hungry. It feels good for a moment, but it doesn't truly nourish you. You end up craving more and more without ever feeling satisfied. Another major problem is that our happiness is tightly tied to comparison. We don't just want to succeed, we want to succeed more than others. We don't just want love, we want love that looks impressive to the world. We don't just want peace, we want a lifestyle that looks peaceful in pictures. This constant comparison makes us mentally exhausted. We begin judging ourselves through the eyes of others, and when their opinions shift, even slightly, we lose emotional balance. Krishna explains that when your happiness depends on someone else's validation, you give them control over your emotional world. And that is why so many people feel fragile inside. They can't celebrate their achievements because they're worried someone else will do better. They can't enjoy the present because they're too busy worrying about the future. They can't appreciate who they are because they're trying to fit into an image society created for them. This is a deep psychological conflict the Gita highlights. The world teaches you to chase approval, while your soul craves authenticity. Another problem the Gita identifies is the restless nature of the mind. A restless mind creates restless emotions. Even when everything is going well, the mind imagines what could go wrong. Even when you're safe, the mind creates fear. Even when you're loved, the mind creates insecurity. Our minds jump from thought to thought, past regrets, future anxieties, old wounds, imagined fears. We replay memories that hurt us and rehearse scenarios that might never happen. This constant mental movement steals our happiness without us realizing it. Krishna tells Arjuna that the mind, when untrained, becomes the biggest enemy of one's peace, and that is exactly what we experience in modern life. Our mind is overloaded with information, overstimulated by screens, and overwhelmed by responsibilities. Our physical presence, but mentally scattered. Happiness cannot survive in that environment. We also suffer because we try to control outcomes. We want life to unfold exactly the way we imagine. We want people to behave exactly the way we expect. We want situations to align perfectly with our plans. But life's nature is unpredictable. Things change, people evolve, plans shift. Yet we remain emotionally attached to a fixed idea of how things should be. And when reality does not match our expectations, we feel disappointed, frustrated, or defeated. The Gita says this is the root of human suffering, expecting permanent certainty in an uncertain world. Instead of adapting, we resist. Instead of accepting, we cling. And in that resistance, we lose peace. Perhaps the biggest problem of all is that we forget who we truly are. We identify with our failures, our wounds, our insecurities, our mistakes. We think we are our roles, our job title, our relationship status, our achievements, our abilities. But these are temporary layers, not our true identity. When life shakes one of those layers, we feel lost. The Gita explains that suffering comes from forgetting the deeper self, the calm, unchanging awareness behind all experiences. When we don't know who we are, we look to the world to tell us, and the world never gives consistent answers. So the real problem isn't that life is difficult, or people don't understand us, or success is hard to achieve. The real problem is that we're trying to find internal satisfaction through external sources. We're trying to fix our inner emptiness with outside achievements. We're trying to heal emotional wounds by changing physical circumstances. And until we break this pattern, we will continue to feel restless, anxious, and unfulfilled, no matter how much success we accumulate. The Gita calls this the cycle of suffering, and it says the only way out is to change the way our inner world works. External life will always fluctuate, but inner clarity can remain constant. Once we understand that happiness is an internal state, not an external reward, we begin to reclaim our emotional freedom. And that is where the true path to lasting joy begins.
The Bhagavad Gita does not simply point out the problems of the human mind.
It gives us a clear, practical, deeply transformative path to rise above them. Krishna explains that lasting happiness is not something we acquire, it's something we awaken by changing the way we relate to our thoughts, our desires, our actions, and our sense of identity. The Gita's teachings are not philosophical theories. They are psychological tools, emotional skills, and spiritual principles designed to reshape the inner landscape of a human being. And Krishna condenses the entire path to joy into three powerful foundations: stillness of mind, detachment from outcomes, and realization of the true self. Each one acts like a pillar that holds the structure of inner peace, and when these pillars are strong, no external storm can collapse your happiness. Let's begin with the first key: stillness of mind. The Gita teaches that a restless mind produces restless emotions. That means no matter how comfortable your life looks from the outside, if your mind is constantly stirring, worrying, comparing, doubting, overthinking, you will never feel stable or happy. Krishna tells Arjuna that the mind is like the wind when left uncontrolled, scattering your focus, pulling you into fear, dragging you into regret, tossing you into anxiety. Most people think their suffering comes from external circumstances, but the Gita reveals that suffering comes from the mind's reaction to those circumstances. Two people can face the same challenge, but one breaks down and the other remains calm. Why? Not because the challenge is different, but because the state of their mind is different. Stillness of mind doesn't mean suppressing thoughts or emotions. It means developing the ability to observe without becoming overwhelmed. It means creating a small space between what happens outside and how you respond inside. Krishna explains that the person whose mind is steady is not shaken by praise or blame, success or failure, pleasure or pain. Think about how powerful that is. Imagine reaching a level of internal clarity where life's ups and downs feel like passing weather, not personal attacks. When the mind becomes steady, happiness becomes consistent because it is no longer controlled by temporary events. This inner steadiness doesn't just give peace, it gives strength, confidence, and freedom from emotional exhaustion. When your mind is still, joy becomes natural. The second key Krishna teaches is detachment from outcomes, and this is one of the most misunderstood ideas in spiritual teachings. People hear detachment and think it means not caring, but the Gita says the opposite. Krishna tells us to give our best effort, but release the need to control the results. In his words, you have the right to your actions, but never to the fruits of your actions. This single teaching can solve a lifetime of stress. Why? Because most of our emotional pain comes from obsession with results, wanting something to happen exactly our way, at exactly the time we expect, with exactly the outcome we imagine. But the world doesn't operate on our timelines. Life is shaped by countless factors we cannot control. When we tie our happiness to results, we make ourselves emotionally fragile. If things go well, we feel good. If they don't, we crash. Krishna teaches that this dependence on outcomes is the root of anxiety. Detachment is the practice of shifting your focus from what you cannot control to what you can. You can control your effort, you can control your attitude, you can control your honesty, discipline, resilience, and intention, but you cannot fully control how life responds to your actions. When you understand this deeply, your mind becomes lighter. You stop fearing failure. You stop chasing approval. You stop comparing your progress to others. Detachment is not indifference, it is emotional intelligence. It frees you from the constant pressure of what if I don't succeed and replaces it with I will do my best and whatever comes I will learn from it. Imagine studying for an exam without fear of failing. Imagine doing your job without constantly worrying about recognition. Imagine loving someone without the pressure of shaping their behavior. Imagine creating a dream without obsessing over when it will manifest. This is the freedom Krishna is talking about. Detachment allows you to act with full focus, full energy, and full sincerity because your peace is no longer on the line. And ironically, people who practice detachment often succeed more because their mind is clear and not paralyzed by fear or desire.
When you remove emotional pressure from the outcome, your performance becomes better, sharper, and more authentic. The third key to lasting joy is the deepest one, knowing your true self. According to the Gita, the root of all suffering is forgetting who we really are. Most people believe they are their thoughts, their emotions, their failures, their wounds, their past, their social identity, their achievements. But the Gita says these are temporary layers, like clothes the soul wears for a while. The real you is the awareness beneath all thoughts, the consciousness that watches your emotions rise and fall, the quiet presence that remains even when everything else changes. When you identify with the temporary parts of life, you become unstable because those parts are always changing. But when you recognize your true self as the unchanging witness, the inner light, the silent observer, happiness becomes natural and stable. Consider this. When someone criticizes you, you feel hurt only because you identify with the image in their mind. When you fail at something, you feel broken because you identify with that temporary event. When you lose something, you feel empty because you believe your identity was tied to it. But the Gita says your true nature is untouched by praise or blame, success or failure, gain or loss. You are not your roles. You are the awareness behind them. You are not the waves. You are the ocean. Once you experience this truth, even for a moment, a massive psychological shift happens. You stop taking things personally. You stop clinging to outcomes. You stop fearing change. And in that freedom, happiness becomes effortless. These three keys, stillness of mind, detachment from outcomes, and realization of the true self, work together like gears in a machine. Stillness of mind reduces emotional noise. Detachment reduces fear and pressure. Self-realization dissolves insecurity and confusion. When all three are practiced, joy becomes your natural state. Not the excitement-based joy that comes from winning, but the peace-based joy that comes from clarity and truth. It is the kind of joy that follows you everywhere because it comes from within. This is the Gita's promise. If you change your inner world, your outer world will no longer control your happiness. You become rooted, stable, calm, and deeply fulfilled, even in a world that constantly fluctuates. And that is the path to lasting happiness.
The teachings of the Bhagavad Gita may feel profound, philosophical, or even spiritual, but Krishna never intended them to remain only as ideas. His message to Arjuna was meant for real people, living real lives with real struggles. The Gita is a manual for living, a guide to emotional mastery, mental clarity, inner peace, and lasting happiness. The true power of this wisdom is unlocked only when it is lived, practiced, and implemented in daily life. So here we'll explore how the three keys to joy, stillness of mind, detachment from outcomes, and knowing your true self can be practiced practically and consistently in a way that transforms the way you think, feel, and experience life. Let's begin with the first practice, cultivating stillness of mind. Many people misunderstand stillness. They imagine a silent room, a meditation pose, or the absence of thoughts. But stillness isn't about stopping the mind. It's about learning to stop reacting to every single thought that arises. Krishna teaches that a calm mind is not a mind without movement. It's a mind that is not enslaved by its movement. In real life, this begins with micro-practices that slowly build mental space. When you wake up in the morning, before you check your phone, before you check your notifications or rush into tasks, take a moment to breathe deeply and remind yourself, I control my actions today, not the outcomes. This one sentence sets your mind in the right direction. It shifts your focus from anxiety to awareness, from expectation to responsibility. Another practice is mindfulness in small moments. Throughout the day, whenever you feel overwhelmed or distracted, pause for 10 seconds. Simply notice your breath going in and out. Feel the ground beneath your feet or the weight of your body on the chair. This tiny act of coming back into the present moment begins training your mind to return to stillness. Krishna says the mind is like a wild horse, but with practice it becomes a loyal companion. Stillness is built gradually, like strengthening a muscle. The more you practice, the deeper your inner peace becomes, even in difficult situations.
You can also practice observing your thoughts without reacting to them. When a negative thought arises, fear, insecurity, self-doubt, don't argue with it and don't believe it blindly. Simply notice it. There is fear. There is doubt. This practice separates you from the emotional storm. It reminds you that thoughts are temporary clouds, not the sky. The more you practice observing instead of reacting, the more stillness becomes your natural state. Now let's move to the second major practice, detaching from outcomes. This is one of the most powerful emotional practices in the Gita, yet the most difficult for people to implement, because society has conditioned us to believe that our worth is tied to results. Krishna's teaching, "You have the right to your actions but not to the fruits," isn't an instruction to stop caring. It's an invitation to release emotional pressure. The practice begins with shifting your internal dialogue. Instead of asking, "What if this fails?" ask, "What can I do with full sincerity right now?" Instead of thinking, "I hope people like this," think, "I will give my best, and that is enough." In daily life, choose one task every day, your work, your studies, your art, your communication, and consciously practice detachment. For example, if you're working on a project, focus entirely on doing it well without thinking about whether someone will praise it or criticize it. If you're preparing for an exam, focus on understanding, not the score. If you're expressing love or kindness to someone, do it without expecting anything in return. Krishna teaches that action done without pressure becomes purer, sharper, and more joyful. You start experiencing flow instead of stress. The mind becomes free from the constant fear of failure. And ironically, when you release attachment, you perform better because your mind is clear. Another powerful detachment practice is letting go at the end of the day. Before sleeping, reflect on your day and say to yourself, "I did what I could. Tomorrow is another chance. I release the rest." This practice creates emotional closure. It prevents your mind from carrying unfinished expectations into the next morning. Over time, this habit cultivates deep inner peace and reduces stress tremendously. The third and most transformative practice is self-realization, remembering who you truly are. This may sound abstract, but it becomes real through simple everyday awareness. Krishna teaches that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your failures, not your temporary roles. You are the awareness behind them. To practice this, begin with shifting your identity. When something bad happens, instead of saying, "I am a failure," say, "A failure happened, but it is not me." When someone criticizes you, instead of thinking, "I am not good enough," remind yourself, "Their words do not define my essence." When fear arises, instead of feeling consumed, say, "Fear is present, but I am the one observing it." This shift in identity is incredibly powerful. It creates emotional distance from pain. It helps you stay stable even during storms. It reminds you that the real you cannot be harmed by temporary circumstances. The more you practice observing yourself as the witness, the calmer and more confident you become. This is the foundation of spiritual strength. Another self-realization practice is journaling. Each night, write down one sentence. "Today, I was aware of myself beyond my thoughts." This reinforces your identity as the observer. Over time, you stop taking things personally because you stop identifying with the temporary layers of your life. This gives you a strength that is almost unshakable. You can also practice gratitude, not for achievements, but for awareness. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present within you. The Gita teaches that a grateful mind becomes naturally peaceful, and a peaceful mind becomes naturally happy. Finally, integrate Gita's wisdom during moments of conflict, stress, or emotional challenge. When you are upset, ask yourself, "Is this situation controlling my happiness, or is my mind?" When you are anxious, ask, "Am I trying to control the outcome?" When you feel insecure, ask, "Who is feeling insecure, my true self or my temporary identity?" These questions bring you back to clarity, reminding you of the truth Gita teaches. Suffering comes from forgetting who you are. Peace comes from remembering. When these practices become part of your life, happiness is no longer something occasional. It becomes a continuous experience. Joy stops depending on circumstances and begins flowing from within you. You become less reactive, more grounded, more compassionate, more confident, more peaceful. The outer world loses its power to shake your inner world, and slowly, without forcing anything, your entire life begins to transform from the inside out.
If everything you've heard so far has resonated with you, even a little, then this is your moment to make a real decision, not just for this video, but for your entire inner life. Because the truth is, most people will listen to ideas like this, feel calm for a few minutes, and then go right back to their old habits, old fears, and old patterns. They'll treat this wisdom like a nice quote to remember, instead of a roadmap to follow. But if you're watching until this point, it means something inside you is already awake, already searching for a deeper way to live, already tired of temporary fixes and ready for something real. And that's exactly why you're here. The Gita is not calling you to become perfect, holy, or detached from life. It's inviting you to become more you, more aware, more conscious, more free, more present, more joyful. But that can only happen if you decide that this journey is important enough to commit to, step by step. So here's what I'm asking you to do, not as a casual viewer, but as someone genuinely ready for change. First, don't let this just be another video. Take one idea from this message, just one, and apply it today. Maybe it's the thought, I control my actions, not the outcomes. Maybe it's the practice of pausing and breathing when your mind spirals. Maybe it's reminding yourself that you are not your fears. Whatever it is, choose one and live it. Second, if you felt even a small sense of clarity, peace, or hope from this, stay connected. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and keep coming back, not for entertainment, but for transformation. This space is not just a channel, it's a companion on your spiritual and emotional journey. We are going to walk through more teachings from the Gita, break them down into simple language, and show how they fit into real-life issues like anxiety, overthinking, heartbreak, insecurity, and purpose. Third, share this journey with someone who needs it. You probably know at least one person who smiles on the outside but struggles silently on the inside. Someone who feels lost, burnt out, or disconnected. Send this video to them, not as a lecture, but as a gift. You never know how one message at the right time can shift someone's entire life. And finally, make a quiet commitment to yourself right now. Not to never feel sad again, not to never face problems again. That's impossible. But commit to this. From today, I will not abandon myself. I will walk this inner path. I will learn, I will practice, and I will grow. If you're willing to do that, then the Gita's wisdom won't just be ancient words on a page. It will become a living, breathing guide inside your own heart. And I promise you this, if you stay on this path, joy will not be something you chase. It will be something that naturally finds you.
As we come to the end of this message, I want you to take one gentle breath and notice something important. Nothing outside you has changed. Your responsibilities are still there, your challenges are still there, your circumstances may be exactly the same. But if even one small shift has happened inside your mind, that is where true transformation begins. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that real happiness isn't discovered in some faraway place, some future moment, or some perfect version of your life. It's uncovered right here, in the way you think, the way you respond, and the way you relate to yourself and the world. You are not as powerless as your doubts make you feel. You are not as broken as your past makes you believe, and you are not as alone as your fears try to convince you. There is a deeper, calmer, wiser part of you that the Gita is constantly speaking to. So as you move forward after this video, carry one simple reminder with you. True joy is already within you. It's just waiting for you to notice it, nurture it, and live from it. The path will not always be easy, but it will always be worth it, and you do not have to walk it alone. Come back whenever you feel lost, confused, or emotionally tired. Let these teachings remind you of who you really are. Until the next video, take care of your mind, protect your peace, and remember, the more you walk the path of truth, the more joy will quietly walk beside you.